Juniors and seniors taking the literature AP, welcome once again, Mr. Urioste, English Department Chair, the fourth of 5 videos that I'm asking you to review before the review session on April the 19th. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the third of the 3 essays you'll be asked to write, the literary argument and what that means. It's also called the open prompt. So let's just get right to it. All right, go into our OneNotes. Again, here's the Lit AP resources. That's going to be in your content library. Here are all the different resources. We've gone through all of these. We've looked at the overview of the test and the multiple choice section. We looked at the poetry analysis review. We looked at the prose analysis review. Now we're at the third of 3 essays, the literary argument, right? Which is also called the open prompt. Now, this is similar to what I've done before. I've given you 3 examples of the prompts from this section, right? The literary argument, right? Here's one from 2018, right? The question. Here is another one from, I don't have the date on that one, but there it is. And here is a third one. You're going to see how all of these prompts are very, very similar, right? Now then, they're going to ask you, they're going to give you basically a theme-based question, right, on an open-ended theme-based question, which could apply to any number of literary works, right? They're not asking you to write about a particular literary work, right? They're going to ask you to choose a novel or a play, which through your analysis, you can showcase how it responds to the prompt, right? So to prepare well for this, you're going to need to know at least 3 works of literary value backwards and forwards, right? And I'll give you some more information on that momentarily after we walk through these prompts. So first of all, here's the 2018 one, right? And notice that's what it looks like. There's a prompt here on top. And then it's always going to say, you may choose a work from the below list or another work of comparable literary merit. Don't summarize a plot, and then they give you a couple of columns. Again, you may not know any of these books, and that's fine. You will know at least 3, maybe 4 books of literary merit, and one of those should be able to fit the prompt here, right, in some fashion. So let's take a look at the prompt. I've put it up here on top, right? The prompt says the following, right? Many works of literature feature characters who have been given a literal or a figurative gift. The gift may be an object, or it may be a quality, such as uncommon beauty, significant social position, great mental faculties, or extraordinary physical powers. Notice how the gift can be defined any number of ways. So that'll apply to any number of literary works, right? Not just one literary work, but any number, right? Where characters have literal or figurative gifts, right? Okay, the prompt continues, yet this gift is often also a burden or a handicap. Select a character from a novel, epic, or play who has been given a gift that is both an advantage and a problem. Then write a well-developed essay analyzing the complex nature of the gift and how the gift contributes to the meaning of the work as a whole. Excuse me, allergies have been awful lately. So let's go through this. First of all, note the genre. It's going to say novel, epic, or play, right? Let's highlight that first. So novel, epic, or play, those are your options. Not a short story, not a memoir. Like if last year you took the memoir class, memoirs are of literary value, but this is a work of fiction. So it has to be a novel, an epic poem, or a play. You have read novels and plays, right? Plays like A Doll's House, sophomore year, right? Read lots of novels in 9 through 12. So note that, right? You need to be within the genre. And you want to select a character who's been given a gift that's both an advantage and a problem, right? So it's got to be a kind of complex gift. Let's do that green here. Write a well-developed essay analyzing the complex nature of the gift, right? First thing you need to take note of. And how the gift contributes to the meaning of the work as a whole. You're going to hear this phrase, I promise you, because I have been doing this for a long time, and I've looked at the laundry list of literary argument prompts, and they always include that phrase, the meaning of the work as a whole. What does that mean? That means your thematic interpretation of the text, given your assessment of this complex gift, right? So thematic claims, have you heard that before? Oh, yes, indeed you have, right? In your English classes, we have hammered that home, right? Where's your claim? Where's your thematic claim? What larger idea is at stake? What concept? What is the point of this work of literature, right? Is it saying something about the complex nature of love, about the dehumanizing nature of warfare, right? Thematic claims, right? That is what the meaning of the work as a whole phrase means, right? So once you have chosen the book you're going to write on, here's a structural model for a thesis through whatever it is you consider, right, the complex nature of the gift that your chosen character receives. The author illustrates this claim, whatever it is that you articulate, right? So what does a good thesis look like in specific, right? Here is someone who did well, right, on this prompt, writing about Henry James' Portrait of a Lady, which I doubt you've read. Doesn't matter. This student has read it. And let's take a look at the two parts here, right? Here is where they're addressing the first part, right? The complex nature of the gift, right? Isabel Archer's gift of a large inheritance gives her the advantage of moving more freely as a woman in society, but also makes her more vulnerable to be seen by others as a tool, right? So there's that complex nature of the gift. It's both a positive and a negative thing. It gives her this advantage, but it's also this disadvantage. And now, notice that we have tagged on the end, things are pulled together in a thematic claim. The meaning of the work as a whole is, highlighting the novel's depiction of the woman's disadvantaged role in society, right? So there it is, right? You wouldn't want just the green, because if you just do the green, you're going to be limiting it yourself to just looking at character analysis, right? The fact that this large inheritance gives her this advantage and gives her this advantage, right? But you want to tag on some kind of larger claim, the meaning part, right? Highlighting what? Woman's disadvantaged role in society, right? Now, again, you might think, isn't that a little bit broad? It might be, but it's good enough here because this is a essay that was generated in 40 minutes, right? Mantra at the AP, as I've said before, is give students credit for what they do well, right? In body paragraphs, what do you do then, right? You support yourself on the literary argument, not by quoting directly from the book, because you're not going to have that book in front of you. You are going to use examples that you remember, right? And I'm going to show you how to prepare for this in particular in a moment, right? In terms of what you need to do in advance. You need to know 3 books backwards and forwards. I've given you a resource that you can complete to do just that. All right, let's look at a couple more. Here is another one, right? And notice that's what it's going to look like. There's a prompt. It's always going to say you can choose a work below from the list below, or one of comparable literary merit. It's always going to say that, one of comparable literary merit. The last prompt said another work of comparable literary merit. What does comparable literary merit mean, right? It means anything you've studied in an English class, right? Avoid genre fiction. Young adult literature, it can be great. Don't do that, right? Romance, no. Detective novels, no, right? That kind of genre fiction, no. But something of literary merit. And when you're preparing, you can ask your teachers if this would be a good book to prepare. Basically anything from your English classes you could use, right, from freshman year onward. Let's break this prompt down now, as we've done before, right? It says, select a novel, play, or epic poem. And notice again, they're laying out the genre of what you want to do, right? And I'll just reemphasize one more time. Don't do a short story. Don't do a memoir. That's nonfiction, right? It's a novel, play, or epic poem. So novels or plays are probably the things to look at, or just novels, right, if you like novels. That features a character whose origins are unusual or mysterious. Then write an essay in which you analyze how these origins shape the character and the character's relationships, and how the origins contribute to the meaning of the work as a whole. So the 2-part shuffle here. The first part is, okay, this character has unusual origins. How does that shape the character and the character's relationships? And then the second part is how these origins contribute to what? Hey, look at that phrase again. The meaning of the work as a whole. Again, a thematic claim. What is the larger point, right? What is the bigger idea? What is at stake? Language that your English teachers have used before. right? So again, structural model, same thing I've done before with the poetry and prose prompts. You want those two parts there, right? Part one, you kind of pinpoint the first part of the prompt, right? You want to pinpoint how your character's mysterious origins shape him or her, right? As well as their relationships. And then the second part is where you kind of bring home how the origins contribute to the meaning of the work as a whole, right? All right, so here is a thesis, right, that does just that. And it's about this student chose to write about Leslie Marmon Silko's novel Ceremony, a Native American writer, fantastic book, right? And notice how the first half of the thesis is pinpointing the green, the mysterious origins piece, right? So let's take a look at that. Tayo's unusual origins reflect his personal struggle, especially as he lingers upon a personal identity between white and being native, offering critical commentary on cultural integration between natives and whites throughout the 20th century. So here is the meaning of the work as a whole piece, right? And again, that claim there might be a little bit vague, but in the follow through in the body paragraphs, the writer does a good job of articulating how this is about the struggles of cultural integration between natives and whites, right? Okay, so Tayo, if we think about this character, he's split between these two identities, right? Being white and being a native. And you don't stop there. That's just the character piece. You connect that to a claim, the way in which that struggle, right, of being trapped between being white and being native suggests these issues of cultural integration between natives and whites throughout the 20th century. There's that thematic claim, the meaning of the work as a whole piece, right? One more. All right. Here is a third prompt, right? This is what it looked like. Notice it looks very, very similar, right? Notice again here, after they give you this background information and they tell you what to do, the same kind of language, you may choose a work from the list below or another work of comparable literary merit. Don't summarize the plot. They don't want summary, they want an argument, right? That's what we always tell you. Don't summarize, don't summarize, don't summarize. Make an argument. Here is a list of possibilities, right? The theme-based question could fit. These texts could fit that. Oh, no, I haven't read any of these, right? Or I've read one or two, but I don't know them well. I prepared 3 other ones. Doesn't matter, right? Because you can pick a work from this list or a work of comparable literary merit. That is anything you've read in your English classes. Or some of you who are actual readers outside of English class and like literary fiction, if you've read other literary texts, right, that are acclaimed, whether they be classic texts or contemporary texts, those could work as well, right? When in doubt, ask your teachers, would this be a good text for the AP? Now, let's look at the prompt, which I have front-loaded up here, right? Let's take a look at it. Many works of literature contain a character who intentionally deceives others. The character's dishonesty may be intended either to help or to hurt. Such a character, for example, may choose to mislead others for personal safety, to spare someone's feelings, or to carry out a crime. Choose a novel or play. Let's stop right there. Notice how the last couple that you looked at said a novel, play, or epic poem, right? This one says novel or play. All of them will always say a novel or a play. So you are always safe with novels or plays. I would prepare those, right? Novels and or plays, right? Choose a novel or play in which a character deceives others. Then, in a well-written essay, analyze the motives for that character's deception and discuss how the deception contributes to guess what? The meaning of the work as a whole. Have we seen this before? Yes. Will you see that on the literary argument prompt? Yes, you will, right? What does that mean? It means a thematic claim that you're making and proving, right? So breaking it down again for the thesis, you kind of want to address these couple parts, right? The motives that for the character's deceptions, don't stop there though, and how that deception does what? Contributes to the meaning of the work as a whole. It's the 2-part shuffle, right? There is the structural model, what you might do, right? Again, we have seen this before, right? The 2 pieces of a thesis statement, right? So what does that look like, concretely? Here is a thesis of a student who wrote about a novel called An American Tragedy by Theodore Dreiser, an early 20th century novel about urbanization and industrialization and so on, right? And this person looked at the character named Clyde. Uh, um, uh, let's take a look at it. Clyde's evasive behavior speaks for the rapacious greed of industrial America. It speaks for the insatiable desire of the consumer society and of the addictive nature of wealth, beauty, and possessions in the eyes of capitalism, right? So here, this first piece, right? The evasive behavior is what will be looked at, right? And in the introduction, the student, introductions don't have to be long, 3 or 4 sentences. The writer sort of set up, here's the author and title I'm looking at, right? They gave a little bit of background on Clyde's evasive behavior. And so here they're just saying, okay, this character's evasive behavior does what? This is the thematic claim. Speaks for the rapacious greed of industrial America, for the insatiable desire of the consumer society, and of the addictive nature of wealth, beauty, and possession in the eyes of capitalism. Now, as we've said before, mantra AP, reward students for what they do well. This thesis is a little wordy. However, clearly, right, this character has a sound thematic focus, right? The idea that my thematic claim is going to be about, right, greed in industrialized, consumerist, capitalistic world, right? And the addictive nature of wealth and beauty and so on, right? Is it wordy? Yeah, it's a little bit wordy. But again, it's clear what this writer's going to articulate in the subsequent paragraphs. And the subsequent paragraphs did that quite well, right? So again, the AP graders realize that you're writing these essays quickly, each one taking about 40 minutes. And so it won't be the most polished piece of work you've done, but they want to see that you can put together a multi-paragraph argument and that your thesis is hitting these 2 pieces, right? Which this one does, right? So there it is. Now, you are probably wondering right now, well, how on earth do I even prepare for this? What am I supposed to do to be ready for this? And I want to draw your attention to this next page, the major works data sheet with the literary argument, right? Now, to prepare for this is the one part of the test over which you have the most control, because if you don't prepare for the literary argument as well at all, you're going to be stuck, right? What was that book I read? How does this book in this class relate to it? You really want to know, as it says here, 3 books of literary merit backwards and forwards. Make sure they are different too. If you choose one that's a dystopian novel, right? Don't choose 3 dystopian novels. Maybe one from, a book from a different elective, right? Now, what are you going to do with those 3 books? What you'll want to do on your own before the test is know those backwards and forwards. To that end, I've included this Word document. The major works data sheet, right? And I suggest that you spend some time doing this for 3 books, right? For 3 books, you do this forward, right? So you go through this first page. You don't spend too much time on, right? It's not the most essential, but obviously author and title, date of publication, right? They're not going to ask that you cough up the date of publication, just so that you know, okay, when was this written? Turn of the 20th century, late 20th century, right? During the 1960s, whatever it might be. Genre, the genre will probably just be literary fiction, right? But it might be more, it might be dystopian novel or coming of age or whatever. Where it says biographical information about the author, you don't need to worry too much about that. A couple of things, F. Scott Fitzgerald lived during the 1920s, right? During the Jazz Age, etc. But just a little bit of background on the author can go a long way. Historical information about the period of publication or setting of the novel, again, brief there. You don't need too much there. You don't need to do reams of research because this is not a research paper. Characteristics of the genre, whatever might come to mind, if it's dystopian lit or coming of age novel or a family saga or whatever. What are some quick characteristics? And then in your own words, just summarize the plot so you know what the general plot is, right? Familiarize yourself with the plot. Now, again, this first page, you can be kind of light with this first page. You don't need to go overboard. The next few pages is where you're going to, I think, spend your most attention, right? Now, I would say that you pull out 3 memorable quotes, 3 at least, more if you can. Does that mean that you need to quote directly from the text in your essay? No, but pulling out significant quotes, right, does allow you to get to what's significant about in a novel. So you might go back to some of your papers you read on particular books, right, in particular classes, and you can review those in terms of pulling out quotes. But what are some significant quotes? 3, I would say maybe up to 5, and then briefly articulate the significance of those quotes. That's a way to get yourself in the mindset of the novel, right? Something significant about characters, about conflicts, about the themes the books suggest. On page 3, important, you need to know characters. You saw that on those literary argument prompts, a lot of them are character based, right? A character who deceives, a character who receives a complex gift, right? So the name of the character, what's their role in the story, the significance of this character, and what are some adjectives to describe that character. Those can come in handy. So if you pull out something like, I don't know, Hamlet from Shakespeare's Hamlet, you wouldn't say like good, bad, positive, negative. You would say, I don't know, wily, cynical, intellectual, right? Anxious, a heap of adjectives that you could for each character. So who are the major characters? And obviously minor characters you don't have to worry about, but the major characters in a novel or a play, know those, know their roles, articulate their significance, and pinpoint some adjectives for them, right? On the following page, right? Setting is very important, right? It can be geographical setting, but a lot of times it's socioeconomic setting, right? Is this a rural setting? Is this taking place in the city? In The Great Gatsby, it is obviously the upper class, right? An upper class setting in the 1920s. Significance of the opening scene. Opening scenes are always important. In English classes, you probably remember that we oftentimes spend time looking at the opening scenes, right? Because they're important. They sort of set the tone and the mood for the novel, right? Symbols or motifs. Try to isolate at least 3 symbols or motifs. A motif is a recurring image or passage, right? Something that or a phrase that occurs throughout, right? A novel. And then significance of the ending, the closing scene. Just take some quick notes on those things, right? And then most importantly, at the bottom, themes, right? Have at least 3 articulated themes, right? Again, you notice that those essays asked you to articulate the meaning as a work as a whole. That's the thematic claim, right? Is this about the perils of romantic love, right? Or is this war novel about the way in which industrialized warfare dehumanizes young men, right? Or you get the picture, right? If you were in dystopian literature and looked at The Handmaid's Tale, is this about the destructive nature of misogynistic patriarchies that strip women of their agency? I'm just making stuff up here, but again, the themes that sort of undergird a work of fiction, right? So there it is, right? Again, you want to do this 3 times for at least 3 different literary texts, right? If you put all your eggs in the basket of one text, that text may or may not fit the open prompt, the literary argument prompt, right? If you do 3 different texts, you're probably going to be safe, right? And I can tell you that students who have told me afterwards that they prepared well for this, felt comfortable with this part of the test, and students who did not struggled a little bit, right? Again, you have a little bit more control over this part of the test. Do this preparatory work before the essay, before the exam, so that you know 3. If you can do 4 or 5, great, but at least 3 novels or plays know them backwards and forwards, okay? Okay, so that is the video on the literary argument. There's going to be one more video, and then I'm done on the essay grading scale and some final tips in terms of the essays. Thank you once again for your time.